Back again. I haven't chopped my head off this time. So this time I was just going to go through a few more of the heart raisers so that you can maybe pick, say, 4 things to do with your abs and then a heart raiser, or 3 things with your abs and a heart raiser. Or you could do a plank, an ab one, a back one, a heart raiser, and then keep repeating. Normally you're going to need to do several sets to fatigue yourself, but always stick some back in there, always put a bit of heart raiser in there. So my favourite heart raisers, for example, that still utilise abs would be, for example, you know that I love a burpee, so it would be maybe a walkout burpee, okay? So you're going to come walk out, burpee, oops, walk back, jump, walk out, jump. Whoops, I'm going all over the place. Okay? But really hit plank and then go from there. If it's too much to jump, okay, then step. Okay? So that would be that example. Then you've got the boxing ones with the speed ball, with the lean backs, for example. The longer you can hold in that position, the more you're going to feel your abs firing up. Mountain climbers. So you might see people doing really fast mountain climbers, okay? But actually, when it comes to control for your core, you'd be better off actually doing slow and steady and really trying to pull your core in. It's very easy to kind of and let it all go when you're doing a mountain climber. But if you can look sideways at yourself in a glass or a mirror, just check whether you're still drawing your abdominals in while you're doing your climbers. Then change the orientation, come through, so you're doing some of your obliques, and also coming out to the side. Okay, you can do a crunch, a side crunch, while you're in that position. Okay, then for example, twists, so just something simple, keep them nice and fast. Again, tends to get your obliques going, gets your step rate up, and as you can hear from my breathing, gets your heart rate up too. And probably my favourite one, as I've said before, mummy kicks. But if they're too much, even things like a traditional star jump, but if you change your orientation of your arms to clapping in together, you can feel yourself being able to contract your abs that bit harder. So I think those are my favourites with regards to heart raisers. Then ab work that isn't crunches but does tend to have to get you working your low abs, okay? So hopefully you can see me. Make sure you are not doming. So check that you can do a head lift, for example, tucking your chin down, look down, lift, and check that you're not doming your abdominals up. That is so important, because you'll never get great abs if you're letting it go up like this when you're trying to lift your head and everything's pushing out, okay? So make sure you go through that basic Pilates series that I can throw you the link to, and then I would work on things like, for example, being able to hold this position and being able to lift and hold and keep this all drawn in, okay? Then working on to being able to do oblique work in this position, and obviously the lower the leg goes, the harder it is, and even the slower you go, the harder it is, okay? So you don't have to go fast to get good ab work, okay? Then you can be doing things like elevating your arms while you're in a hold position. You don't have to be moving the legs the whole time, but this will tend to work then more your uppers rather than your lowers. The lowers is the hard bit to get, and so there are things like your reverse crunch or your lifts, okay? Obviously all of the leg lift series, which all comes from Pilates, the further out you go again, the harder it's going to be. So you can extend and lower, you can lower halfway, but the longer you hold, so time under tension is really important with gaining great abs, okay? So lower and hold. You can do both, lower and hold, okay? And it can be nice and close to you to start with, and hold. but check that you're not coming up off of the floor, which goes back to what I said with being able to control your pelvic tilt at the beginning and knowing how that you're doing that. You're not forcing yourself into the floor and keeping your ribs under control so they are not popping up, okay? So obviously it is great to get to a point where you can do, long leg lowers or double leg lowers, for example, but you have to just work up the level you're at. I actually had fairly decent abs when I couldn't do double leg lowers. I just spent a lot of time doing single alternating legs and bent leg lowers. Then other things that I really quite like is coming into this position, for example, and being able to do a crunch in that position there, or being able to come out into a star position. So here and up, there and up. But again, that's jumping to something that's really quite advanced to do. So you can make it, a small one, for example. They call these ones dead bugs because you look like a dead bug, okay, with your arms and legs in the air. But again, they're great for getting that lower section going, okay? Even in this position, if you can't do the entire leg lift, just trying to go really slow and control with trying to just lift your tailbone off the floor, you're going to start feeling your lowers kicking in and then dropping the legs down. So it doesn't have to be uncontrolled. And really importantly, then come to stretch out. So come into this position and start working your back. So being able to do your scapula and lift your scapula. And you can do that in different positions. Keeping your head rested on something is a good idea to start with, until you get to a point that you can lift the whole back and head off the floor. Keep your neck in a nice neutral position rather than craning your neck up like that, which is going to more likely do you a bit of mischief. And then you can do swimmers, okay? So they can be coming from here and down, for example. Or you can just be lifting and holding. It really doesn't matter where you do this, okay? Just work at a level which you are happy with, okay? And then once you've worked your back a little, you may need to come into a child's pose to stretch off your back. Or you can use lumbar rotation, again, to stretch off your back. But a lot of people get bad backs when they do abdominal work because they don't work their back, and therefore you get imbalance between the musculature at the front and the musculature at the back. And the musculature at the back is nearly always weak because our lives are spent doing mostly sitting activities, which puts this in a lengthened position and becomes weak. So you can also use things like your Supermans, which actually I much prefer to go in a slow phased action to get there rather than shooting it out. But once you're used to doing it, yes, you can then take both parts off the floor all in one go. Again, always checking, are you controlling or are you letting that go? Is your back staying in a neutral position? Okay, arm lift, leg slide, leg lift, and hold in a neutral position. Hopefully that makes sense. Also, any of these things that you're doing on your tummy, you can put a pillow underneath you here to raise this part of you up, okay? That's going to give your back a little bit of breathing room if you're a bit stiff. So for example, if you ended up coming into the position and doing swimmers, you can see that it's quite easy to then overextend your back if you're not careful. Try to lock it to come only from your buttocks, okay? But that pillow underneath your tummy is going to be a bit of a saviour if you're struggling to isolate that. The same with doing your shoulder blades. If you're struggling to isolate, then put the pillow under here, okay? Hopefully that will have you well and truly sorted with several options. Have fun!